careful with
We've
this.
heard from the former prosecutor. Let me turn to the former cabinet official and just get your read on this from that perspective. I would imagine it's a rare thing when a cabinet official is discussing the 25th Amendment.
Well, first of all, you have to get a majority of the cabinet for it to happen.
The bar is very high.
Very high. Then you have to get 2/3 of the Congress, 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate. That's not going to happen. The ballot box is the only way, I believe, a president can be removed. But, you know, in this issue, first, it does seem unseemly what Mr. Rosenstein said, if he did say it. He has denied it. But, you know, if you go and try to fire everybody that's criticized the president internally in the White House, that's a very long list. My prediction is that he will fire him. I mean, this is pretty serious. This is serious allegations. But from a political standpoint, Mr. Carmichael is an expert here. If you're a political candidate, you're running in the midterms. You're running in 50 days. This is another distraction. You don't want to be answering questions from the press. Well, what'd you think about the president's statement on tweet about Rosenstein or about Kavanaugh? You want to be talking about local issues, jobs. You want to be talking about energy. You want to be talking about foreign policy. So this is another bad day for any Republican candidate.
Dan Goldman, do you see the consequences of perhaps firing Rod Rosenstein as being purely political? What would the other consequences be of getting rid of the Deputy Attorney General now, the man responsible for overseeing the Russia investigation?
Well, he is responsible. Jeff Sessions has recused himself. So you'd have to then find somebody else to oversee it. It would ordinarily go to the Solicitor General in this case, who's Noel Francisco, but there may be some issues in terms of his representation because of his former association with a Jones Day law firm. It throws everything out of whack, and there are two different ways it could go. One is that someone could end up overseeing it. It could really clip the wings off of the Mueller investigation. Or I could also see it as a situation where Mueller actually gains more power and authority because there's a vacuum there overseeing it. So no one wants to be the one who really clips at this investigation, which by all accounts is gaining steam. You have Paul Manafort cooperating now, President Trump campaign chairman. I think it is much increasingly difficult to end this investigation in any way, shape, or form before it's finished because of all of the events that have occurred recently.
Tiffany, what do you make of the reaction that we've seen politically since all of this happened? You've got people in Congress from the far-right flank of the Republican Party who have been calling for Rod Rosenstein's impeachment or resignation for some time. Now lecture Michael standing back and saying, don't do this. There's a midterm coming up. We should see how this happened, et cetera. What do you make of that reaction?
Well, at first, I think that the president this morning is probably very confused because mom and dad disagree. Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity are at odds. No, I'm kidding. He doesn't respect women. Obviously, he's going to go with Sean Hannity probably. But I think it's going to be a real challenge for this president, who's obviously not a long-term planner. So I don't know if Rod Rosenstein is safe. I think he might be right. He might need to update his LinkedIn. I think the Republicans are going to have a real hard time with this in the midterms. The Law and Order Party has now become the party it's law and order. They've consistently attacked the DOJ over their handling. They've spread, many falsehoods. They have a network echoing these falsehoods around the FISA memo or the FISA warrant. So I think they are going to maintain their message that there's this deep state and this witch hunt that keeps producing witches and warlocks, every other week, it seems. I think they have, to Shermichael's point, given the Democrats a great talking point around midterms, which is, obviously very damaging to their effort to try to maintain control of the House and the Senate. So we'll see how it plays out in November. I will say, lastly, there is nothing that seems to penetrate his base. His base sticks with him no matter what. The Family Values Party, they don't mind if he had affairs with porn stars and Playboy playmates. The Law and Order Party doesn't care that he, waged this war in the intelligence community. So, we'll see what happens in November.
But evangelicals, you had Ralph Reed, you had Franklin Graham, well-known evangelical leaders that have come out and said Republicans must confirm Kavanaugh. Ralph Reed even said if they do not, then they are risking the Senate. They're putting their leadership, their majority at risk by not confirming this guy. I think for a lot of evangelicals, they don't like Trump. They don't like his character flaws. They know morally he's not with them. However, they say, look, we want a conservative Supreme Court. We want to re-look at Roe versus Wade. We want to look at some of these LGBTQ issues. Because for them, this is a moral fight, which is bigger than the politics, which is why they continue to stick with Donald Trump.
Governor, quickly.
No, my point here is, take my state of New Mexico. there's a credible candidate on the Republican side, a former congressman running, very strong Trump supporter. He's staying far away from the president. Totally. He's trying to portray himself as a moderate. And New Mexico's a state that is very independent. So you look at the electoral consequences of these issues, the Kavanaugh issue, this issue with Rosenstein, and if you're a Republican candidate, you're worried. You got 50 days out, and you want to talk about your own personal issues in terms of jobs and economic development, and then the press asks you these questions at town meetings all the time. So, this is not a good sign for Republicans.
All right, let's come back here in just a moment. Up next, some brand new developments in that back and forth between Judge Brett Kavanaugh's accuser and the Senate Judiciary Committee.